daughter of Hare Krishna Ghosh, who was Yogananda's nephew, one of his nephews. And I visited that home. I think I've been there a few times. This granddaughter, her name is Sudarshana. She's now married and having her own family. The legacy of that household, there's always been someone who stays there and lives in that household and is in service to that shrine, made sacred by Master's life there, the part that he lived it there. And as Sudarshana was coming of age, people always ask, what do you want to be when you grow up, or when are you going to get married, or are you going to get married, or whatever the question is. But anyway, people were asking her, when are you going to get married, this kind of thing. And Sudarshana simply answered, I want to live here forever. And it was so sweet. I mean, certainly in the physical element of it, just the shrine to Yogananda's life is such a sacred place if you ever get to go there. And just his realizations of God. He said of that attic room, this is where I found God. And you really just feel, of course, great inspiration and vibration there. But on another level, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk just a little bit about now, is that underlying meaning. I want to live in that consciousness forever. And once we get that little taste, we wake up from this hypnosis of the material plane and we realize there's something else, and it's really great, and it's really worth having. We want to be in that as much as possible, as often as possible. It becomes addictive in the highest kind of way. You just want to always be in that vibration. You want to be in it forever. There's a wonderful story from the life of Krishna and one of his very close disciples. Of course, everybody was close and everyone was loved totally by Krishna, as Ananta said earlier. But one of his great disciples was Uddhava. And Uddhava was very close to Krishna, spent a lot of time with Krishna, and really just close, very close, and kind of always thinking of Krishna's needs, just one step ahead and trying to, be there fully in service to Krishna. And was also very, very perceptive. And so Uddhava realizes that the tides are changing and the higher ages are, they're going by and the lower yugas are coming in, the descendants of consciousness. And Uddhava realizes that Krishna is not going to be around much longer. And he intuits this, and he calls Krishna on it. He says, I know what you're doing. I know what you're thinking. I know you're going soon, and this is not okay. And Uddhava says, what am I going to do? What am I going to do without you? Where am I going to be? You can't go. I have to go with you. You have to take me with you. And this long dialogue goes on between Krishna and Uddhava, and Krishna's trying to console him. And finally he says, Uddhava, this is what you need to do. When I'm gone, you need to be here, and you need to be an instrument for all that I've given to you, and help people, and be in their world, and help them, and show them the light, and be there for them. And he says, but what you can do is go to Badrinath. This is high up in the Himalayas. And he said, in a previous incarnation, I was there as Narayan, my disciple, Naraya, Krishna and Arjuna, way long ago. And this sort of appeals to Uddhava, it's some little token of comfort to him. But again, the underlying meaning is not that we all head off to India and Badrinath, although it would be great fun if we ever get the chance in this body. But again, to go here, to live in the spiritual eye. And that's really the key to the path of Kriya Yoga in daily life, and how to integrate our practice and feel like that's the life we're living. You know, Swamiji spoke of his life, and the thing that was most important to him was, have I been a good disciple? It's all he thought about. It was his only identity, if he had one at all, was just in service to the Guru. And how can I do that? And his consciousness was just always centered here in that relationship and that expression. And to Yogananda said, if we live at the spiritual eye, it greatly accelerates our spiritual growth. To just be at this center. It's like being at the top of a mountain when we really feel like our consciousness is centered there, and our worldview is really different. There's all this stuff happening, there's all this chaos, and there's things that aren't right out there and in here, but it just looks really different when we find that our consciousness is centered here. This is what Lahiri Mahashai came to show us. Those of you who are new, Lahiri is our Guru's guru in our mind. This is Lahiri here. And Lahiri, we really owe it to Lahiri that Kriya is out there. And because Lahiri, when Babaji gave Kriya to Lahiri, and you can read about it in the autobiography if you're new to this, but Babaji said, give this to all who live a supportive, renunciate life. And Lahiri said, but there's others. There's so many who yearn for God, and if they don't have this tool, this key of Kriya Yoga, what are they going to do? They're going to lose their motivation, they're going to lose their inspiration, they're not going to seek, they're not going to find. And Babaji said, so be it. God has spoken through you. And Lahiri's life, as Ananda said earlier, he was a householder, he had family, he had job, and even after he met Babaji and Kriya, all that continued. I mean, that was the reason for it. There's a reason why you haven't come to your 33rd year, Babaji said to Lahiri, until you had a family and modest responsibilities. There's a reason, because now that Lahiri has lived that life, that we can read about it thanks to Yogananda. Lahiri said, someday my life will be known in the West, and Yogananda cataloged that for us. And so we can't say, because of that life, we cannot say, I have family, I can't seek God. I work in the world, therefore I can't seek God. I have obligations to whoever and all, therefore I can't see God. We can't say that anymore. Ruled out. Not an option. Because Lahiri did all of that. And he was able to do that by integrating those two realities. To live in the world, but not of it. And the way we do that is to try as much as possible to live with our consciousness in the spiritual eye. When Swamiji first founded the community of Ananda in Nevada City, Ananda Village, we had land, we didn't have the means to pay for it, and the only one really capable, as it turned out at that time, of making that happen was Swamiji. Here's all these young people, they have their health, not a lot of brain at this point, still thinking they know everything and are above everything, but also, in our favor, sincerely interested in the spiritual path. But it was Swamiji who assumed that responsibility to go out and earn the money that would pay the mortgage at Ananda Village so we could live there and have this spiritual life. And it took years, it took time. And it meant he had to go down during the week and teach all of these classes and then drive back up on weekends and teach us classes. And, it was just a wild schedule. And he said he didn't like it. He resented it on a certain level. He wasn't happy that he had to go do this, and he kind of fought it. I want to live my life here. I've chosen to be a disciple. I want to give it to you, Master, and serving people in this way. We all define what way it is that we want to serve, and that trips us up. And when he realized he was doing this, he said afterwards, he realized how much blessing and grace came to him. It prepared him spiritually to do the work he had to do next, which was for not just all of us, but all of the souls that would come to Ananda, through Ananda. And, we don't have a lot of people, relatively speaking, living in Ananda, but boy, the souls that have come through, whose lives have been changed, have gone on to wherever their karma's taken them. Ananda has been a tremendous blessing, and that very circumstance and others like that enabled and allowed him to serve even more fully. One of our young parents the other day was talking to me, and it's here you are, you're trying to integrate this life, my spiritual life, and the life that's demanding all of this from me in the world. And they have a young child, and she just found herself, getting into that space where it's like, oh, I can't go to long meditations anymore, and I can't do this, and woe is me. And they've got a beautiful child, but it's what the mind gets into is somehow that, if we're doing this, we're missing that. If we're doing that, we're missing this. And we're always just kind of got our foot in two camps, and we're not happy. We're not the happy camper. So, and then we just, as you probably did, celebrated the birthday and Mahasamadhi of Lahiri Mahashai, which come close together. And Aunt and I were talking about how we love that, because you can really get a dose of Lahiri. It's like you have the one celebration and then it just doesn't go off. Then it's 3 days later there's this other one, and you just feel like you're steeped in Lahiri consciousness. And she was just saying how insightful it was for her to just spend some time inwardly with Lahiri that way and realize, okay, the great ones are doing this. It's not just me and my little life, but our very masters are having to meet these challenges and realize how to integrate these two things and to be in the world but not of it. And again, that just comes from living with our consciousness at the spiritual eye. I had a friend who many, many years ago and is a Kriyaban, and at that time they had just become a Kriyaban, and probably felt, like Jennifer was talking about earlier, kind of that vulnerability. You take this step forward, you really want to, but it's like, I'm not really sure, because, you're on, you think you're on unfamiliar ground. We're not, but the mind, causes us to think that, and we get a little insecure. We're not sure about what we're seeing or experiencing out there. And she was saying to me, now, not only am I on the spiritual path, not only am I meditating, now I'm a Kriyaban. And her mind was playing this trick with her that just like her world was getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And then where she went from that was really fun. She said, my life is becoming so focused and so narrow, I'll never meet anybody. I'll never find a relationship. I'll never find someone who's a Kriyaban out there. It's just, and it's so typical of what the mind does, and here we do this thing that is so expansive, so soul magnifying, and the mind gets this other seed thought in there that causes us to start shrinking and reinterpret the whole thing, that all of a sudden we're getting smaller because we're doing this, we're doing meditation, because we're doing Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga expands every option, anything that we're interested, any way that we want to serve, anything that we're excited about. We were working with this young couple on the farm the other day. They were, one of the people in the community offered her house through that sort of couch sitting program, and these two young people came and been traveling around for about 6 months. They're from Canada, and we were working out there on the farm picking sungold tomatoes, and the little orange yellow cherry tomatoes that taste like candy. It was really fun to pick them, sort of one in and one from off. And we were picking these, and so they said, and they're young, and so, how long have you been here? Oh, about 40 years. Wow. What is that like? I wish you had to take that. I said, well, it's like many incarnations, many incarnations. And then Ananta, I don't know what the link up was, but then somehow he said, and we're hoping this one is it. And then she said, oh, come on, the world is so much fun. Life is fun, which wasn't what we were saying. We weren't saying it wasn't fun. Life is fun, and we want to be creative. We want to enter into it, with the totality of our being. If we don't do it right, what we're doing serves no purpose. It really doesn't. If we don't do what we do joyfully, we've missed the point. If we don't do what we do with a sense of Dharma and freedom, we've missed the point. I mean, redo. We're looking at redo. Because we've really got to get it right is to do it with joy, to do it with inner freedom, to be grateful for it. And we get that perspective, we get that, what is for often for a lot of us, that new expanded worldview, again, when we just try to live with a spiritual eye. Try to be here in daily life. Try to think from that point, act from that point. Try to see others at that point, not their personality or their bodies or, even their physical eyes. I mean, really, without looking odd, but, just look to them at that level. Try to see them as the soul that they are. And then as life presents the challenges and the opportunities and the obstacles that it does, try to really bring the fruit of your spiritual practice, of your spiritual life, into that situation by operating from this point. As best as you can, Lahiri said, solve all your problems with Kriya and yoga. And what he was saying is, look at the world from this point, from the spiritual eye, and that's where solutions are. That's where the integration of work, of the spiritual life come together. And then, just as Babaji travels around with his band of disciples coming and going, invisible to us, then we are traveling around with the masters. We're constantly in their company, and they're helping us. They're helping us to integrate those two worlds and bring them to the one.
So, just along those same lines, I think each of us has to personalize our program for what we are, where we are in life. This is the principle, living with the masters, seeing everything from the spiritual eye, seeing, as in this retreat, where we're all just seeing each other as disciples, truth seekers. So we're like a spiritual family. Extend that to our business associates, our family, our birth family, whatever our situation is. But what is going to work for each of us is going to be personalized. It's going to be a formula for you now. It is going to have a couple of things, absolutely, and that is time in meditation each day, preferably, or almost for surely, morning and evening. So what we have to do is go into the spiritual eye, get comfortable with that territory, get comfortable with that consciousness, be with the Guru, just like this retreat. The retreat could last us for months. We can get miles out of this. But we have to be there in formal meditation. Then we have to go about our day. We have to leave the meditative state. And we have our world, our karma. We have jobs and family and all these things. And we have a specific job and a family and a situation. And we have to find a way that we as little as possible leave that state without functioning in an efficient, normal way. That varies. When I was first on the spiritual path, I lived alone. I was a construction worker in downtown San Francisco. I was the only yogi I knew. And I would meditate and really try to feel God's presence, and then I would go to work and try to think about God in this building process. But you can imagine there are cross currents in a construction zone that are not especially spiritually motivated, and that was just what it was. And I had to play that game. Like Swami Kriyananda, I resisted it a little bit at first. I was just like, no, this is the spiritual, you know. Well, the Guru is omnipresent. God is omnipresent. Therefore, God is everywhere. Therefore, wherever you are, God is there. So that argument is not going to work. So I flipped it around. Okay, so I'm working with God. But in this movie, we're playing the part of rough construction workers and sexist comments and, you know, all this, the world of beer and, you know, very low consciousness. I'm not going to let my consciousness go there. I'm going to find ways to sort of appease my brothers, working brothers, but I'm going to keep contact with the masters. You have to find out what works for you. If you're an artist, the divine consciousness has to come through your art. If you're a business person, it's usually efficiency, it's usually, you know, insight, organizational, you know, harmony, or depends on what you are. Nurse, doctor, lawyer, mom, father, sports coach. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's one of the things Lahiri did, is I don't know if he did coach soccer, but he did help the library. He did like the normal stuff. You know, what do parents do? Get the library going, get the computer club going, take the kids to soccer, you know, help them with their homework, all that stuff. We have to do it, but we have to do it, like Kriya said, joyfully and with the presence of the masters, and integrate it in a way that works for you at the time. It's true, maybe this job is going to be extremely challenging. Maybe I could get a job that's more harmonious. Maybe I could work for Dharma Devi, you know, something like that. Get it, you know, move towards a company that is more harmonious. And, you know, if you're in a situation, it's a creative challenge. How can I be thinking of God in this situation? I have had many jobs where during the day, I'm operating a machine, I'm farming, I'm repairing stuff. My mind is open, so I can chant. I can chant all the time because there's not much intelligence required to drive a tractor in circles. You just keep in the lines, you know. And then sometimes, you know, you have to, you know, depending on your situation, but commit yourself. As Maria said, to see yourself as a Kriya, see yourself as a truth seeker. This is your self-definition. Everything in life is an opportunity to come closer to God. If you do that, I absolutely guarantee that Divine Mother will be there on the other side, and she'll give it back to you. And she'll say, okay, I'm with you on this in wonderfully sweet ways, and very interesting ways. I'll tell you one story. When I was a young man, I was an apprentice to an auto mechanic, and I was working on trucks for this young man. And I was in high school, and in high school, I was getting into my ego, you know, because I had you know, good grades, and therefore you start to think I'm pretty smart, you know. Well, I was not trained in mechanics when I started working for this guy. And this guy would just swear at me and say how stupid I was, and he would throw tools at me, and he would spit at me, and all this stuff. At the time, I was very vexed. And later on, I was like, oh, thank you, Master. Because he just crushed my ego to powder. It was wonderful. You know, at the time, I didn't know, but it's like, and it was really great, because he he was a great mechanic. And he just had a crusty exterior, you know. And I worked for him for years, and he was always smoking a cigar, but it was never lit. And so he was always spitting. You know, and he's thinking, why do you do that? I don't know, you know, I just, I'm 16 years old. Anyway, so this period goes through, and by then, I'm a disciple, and I'm serious, and I get it. And I see that this is Master blessing me. It was a wonderful thing. And he was essentially a really kind man. And that emerged too, because I was looking at, he's mean to me. Well, he's not really mean to me because he wants me to be a better mechanic, and I learned a lot from him. So the moral of the story is, one day we're sitting there at the end of the day, and we're sitting around, a bunch of really greasy guys, drinking beer, and you know, the day's over, and sort of like, okay, you know, we're done. And I find out that he's a Buddhist. So he starts telling me about there's this Buddhist master who can do healings and stuff, and Dave is my friend, and he said, yeah, and he's telling me about the Buddha. And so I told him about Babaji. Gary and I were there. Gary's there too. And I told him about Babaji, and I said, you know, Babaji, you know, he'll like just tap his staff and disappear. You know. So Dave gets up and he goes, I'm getting out of here. This conversation's getting too heavy for me. He just kind of walks up into the sunset. Gary and I look at each other like, Om Guru, Om Guru. The Guru's everywhere. So you put out this energy of receiving it, and you see it's everywhere. You feel, people feel it from you in an appropriate way. You don't proselytize, don't, you know, oh, my Guru's the best Guru, all that stuff. We never do that. But the vibration that you put out, I'll tell you another story, is we had Ananda Lane. It was an apartment complex in Rancho Cordova. We made it into the community. And after we were there for a while, you wouldn't see anything when you went to Ananda Lane. It just said Ananda Community. It was a normal, suburban, Rancho Cordova, California apartment complex. It looked like, you know, 200 apartment complexes down this road. And I was buying windows from this guy. I was buying $70,000 worth of windows from this company because he had a really low bid, and he seemed like a nice guy. So he came over to do a measure up and to kind of firm the contract up. So he got out of his car, and he just looked around and he goes, what do you people do here? And it was just the vibe. He just got it. And I said, well, this is the yoga. He goes, this is so peaceful. And all he did was drive in and open the door to his car. Just, it's there. And it's there stronger. I want to give you a piece of encouragement. The more that you define yourself as a Kriyavan, you're going to see that the world will support you in that in subtle ways. And don't be discouraged at first if you're trying to just change it. But if you're adamant and you're focused, I am a Kriyavan. I am living for self-realization. I am living to see the light in everything I do. The universe will respond to that. At your hospital, at your bank, in ways that are impossible. That incredibly grouchy, one more story. Okay, so we live in Ananda, Sacramento at this point. We have a house. It's the Ananda Ashram house. But it's just a nondescript 5-bedroom house on a boring street in the middle of a tasteless suburb. Like every place around here. And we're just there. And we have these satsangs, and all these people come over. They're young, old, black, white, brown. They're everything. They always just come to this house. We go in and we chant, and then all these people leave. So the neighbor next door, he starts to take issue with parking. This is it. This is the key to the slow growth of self-realization is parking laws. So he comes out one day and he starts to lay into me. He says, "You bring all these people over here, and they're parking all over this thing." And I said, "They don't park in your driveway. They just park on the sidewalk." And he was off. He was like, "Yeah, they park everywhere. They're all over the place, and there's all sorts of people." And I said, "Yeah." So I'm just inwardly I'm saying, "Pastor, what am I going to say?" And he's yelling at me. We're on the street, and he's yelling. He's given it to me. And then, so I just say, Pastor, what are we doing? And I said silently, I just said, and I just waited. I didn't know what to say. This old guy yelling at me. And I stopped. And I noticed he's got tears in his eyes. He's crying. And old guys don't cry. They're World War II veterans and they're tough. And, so I just wait. What's going on? And he goes, I'm sorry. My wife just died. She went in for an operation on her leg, and then a blood clot hit her. She died. She died on the operating table. She's dead. And he just let it out. And it was cool. I just said, oh. So we talked about life and death, and he got us, and he became my friend. And from then on, we never had any arguments. And the little end of the story was at Christmas. He gave us a really big salami. It took me like 2 weeks to find someone that eats salami. I don't know anyone that eats salami. All my friends are vegetarian. But I found someone that was really just going to give us salami. So, but it's just God. It's just integrating it into it. And it's making that commitment within yourself. This is how I define myself. I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to see God. And then I'm going to look for God and find ways to weave the mother into my work, my play, your golf, your whatever you do for recreation, your hikes, your dance, your music, whatever you do in your life, integrate God into it. And then, as you go, look to see maybe some activities, maybe this company isn't the right place, maybe I could switch companies, maybe I could, but if your commitment is to God being everywhere with you, God will be with you everywhere. And even in seemingly unspiritual situations, with wrenches being thrown at you constantly, no, God's there. God's throwing the wrenches. The wrenches never hurt. It wasn't bad. It was good. And I became a much better mechanic because of that. And that is a skill that I've had that was 50 years ago. And I have, been a mechanic for Master, and I fixed all sorts of stuff from stuff that he taught me. We gain things from every part. And Swami tells that story about one time he had to go meet this record producer. It was down in the North Beach area, San Francisco. And in those days, we had all the topless bars. So Swami Kriyananda is walking. Are they still there? I think they're gone. I think that kind of went out. Anyway, I don't know. I'll check it out. But Swami Kriyananda has to go to this man's thing to see about his record company. He has to walk, and they had hawkers. They had people, come on in, see this, this crazy bar scene. And so Swami Kriyananda said he just walked down the road, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram. And then he just was in this blissful state, and he just felt he was just protected. And he's in the midst of a situation because he had to be. But he didn't lose contact with God. And so you put that and you define yourself, and you start to rearrange your life as you can. But that's an individual thing. We have kids, you have teenage daughters. They're going to be teenage daughters for a while. They're going to be teenage type people, and this is the US. This is how they behave. I don't know what goes wrong with people between 12 and 18, but it happens. It happens to a lot of kids, and we just stick with this is God going through teenage years, but don't define them by that. Don't define the world. I couldn't define Dave by that behavior, and as soon as I didn't, I started to see he's a kind man. He's a nice man. And he's actually my friend. And then he was a Buddhist. So it's a process, and each one of us has to write that. When you face negativity, You have to strengthen your own positivity. You have to call on Divine Mother. I am, just that negativity is going right past, and you're just going to be in your Divine Mother's space, and you're going to see that. I felt that with that man on the street. It's like he's yelling at me about something that doesn't even exist. I mean, we weren't parking in his driveway or anything. And then I just said, Master, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? This is a ridiculous conversation. And then Master said, okay, that's what I want to know. I'll take care of it from here. So I think it's, you being strong and putting out your energy.
Also just remembering, that God has put you there perhaps to help her on some level start to break through that. And so, it's hard, it's a difficult circumstance for you, and you may never know how your presence there has affected. You may, that may or not be something that you get to even see or are aware of. But a seed has been planted, you're bringing a vibration in proximity to her, and something is going to happen there. God has brought you into that situation. So if you're able to work with it, if you're able to carry that and tolerate it a little bit, then to just also be grateful, because you could be that person that really shifts it for her and allows her to go out having surmounted or transcended some of that negativity or all of it. So it works both ways. It's not just you in that negative circumstance. That is a big deal. It is hard to counter that and be strong in that. And sometimes we can, and sometimes we're more vulnerable and can't. But then there's the other part, which is her karma and her opportunity. And that's also why you're there. Anybody else? Life is good.
For Kimmy and for all of us too, don't be attached to having her respond to your love. Let her, if she's negative, she's that negative. Okay, that may just be the space she's in. If God does work through you and, this man, on the lawn says, I have to tell you this, and we talk. That's great, but make it a bonus. Don't, let her be negative all the time and yelling at you and all that stuff, if it's possible. I'll give you a story though that was the opposite. One day we used to run this apartment complex in Onda, and this one guy comes up and he's going to fix the heater for us. I couldn't fix it. Matt couldn't fix it. So we called in this specialist. He's a heater guy. And so he comes in, and I go, hey, how you doing, buddy? And he goes, I'm not your buddy. And I'm like, okay. So I go, this is Matt. So I go over to Matt and go, big attitude. So Matt goes in, and he starts, yelling at Matt. And so Matt's a very kind man. He's a minister of Ananda, has been a minister for a long time. And Matt just read on the riot act. He goes, look it, buddy, you can't talk like that here. This is a community, we work together. We have a stove to fix. I don't want to hear about it, okay? We're going to fix it together, and then you're going to go. And Matt it was from love, and it was from Master. And he goes, okay, I'm sorry. I just broke up with my girlfriend. So he tells Matt, so Matt gives him a little talk, and they fix the heater, and so the guy's leaving, and he goes, see you later. I go, Matt, it worked that time, but it happens sometimes. You don't know what Matt's, like we were saying, you don't know what Master's doing through you. So there's this lady, a Kenny or something, and she's always so positive, And that vibration is coming. Don't forget, they chose you to vent on. They're yelling at you, but you're a disciple of Master. There's a place there our Master is coming to them. On a subtle way, It's not they're all gonna, oh, I must go to the Ananda Center. She's nice, she's, people get it. And if you are in that center and in that light, they get it or don't, you get it, you benefit.